Welcome back. This segment is going to be something that's by request. Turns out that there are a lot more people interested in refurbishing pipes. First you clean them up, then you refurbish them, and then there's several levels of repair. And there's only a handful of repairmen, but there are a couple of hundred or thereabouts refurbishers. And so even though it wasn't my intent in the early days to do anything but repair work, I keep getting notices or emails, phone calls saying, show us some of the stuff that we can do without all the fancy tools that we can't afford. So here we go. I'm going to refinish with some mild reconstruction a really nice pipe. This is a Barling's straight grain, which you don't see a whole lot of. They're collectible, and everything about it's in good shape. Other than just smoking age. I've recently been sent a large group of pipes to work on. This is one of them. It's one of the ones that's in the best condition, the least dirty. It has already been reamed, and I've already taken the lava off the rim. Did that before deciding to make this video, so you don't get to see me do that. But just for future reference, I favor a method using scrapers. They're little tool steel pieces of sheet metal, and you sharpen them by dragging them on you can use like 1000 grit or something, and then stroke them, holding them dead vertical. And then once you've got the edge of it completely square, this is called a burnisher, and it's nothing but a hardened steel rod with a handle on it. And then you, holding it firmly, watch out you don't cut yourself, you give it some swipes on the edge, and it'll make a very fine wire edge that works great when you're scraping. Now, if I was going to, this pipe needs a very mild topping, about 1/3 of a millimeter, because it became apparent there's ashtray dents in it. And you're probably thinking, well, if you're just going to top it anyway, why bother to take the lava off? Why not just grind it all down? Well, you don't know that there's ashtray dents there until you get the lava off. So you don't want to do more than necessary. And it may have turned out that underneath the lava it was a good rim. So I always do that first, hoping for the best. And then when I don't get it, we move on to what you're about to see. This has also got a fair amount of darkening around the rim, and two what I call thumbprints. They almost look like burn-throughs that are starting to happen here and here. They're dark areas, and it's usually from somebody from years and years of smoking that maybe they handle newspapers or something, get ink on their fingers, and then over years of handling their pipes, they leave dark spots on them that look like burn-throughs about to happen. So since we're going to be having to take the top down to bare wood, we're going to take the finish off the rest of this as well. And I'll show you how to get back to having the pipe look new. And there's a couple of things that most refinishers regularly get wrong that immediately signal to somebody examining it that it has been refinished. And we'll talk about those as we get to them. First order of business is you're going to need lots of 600 grit wet or dry paper, a flat surface with a piece of 600 grit taped to it so that you can scrub the rim around on there. And that's off camera, and maybe I'll move it, maybe not, I don't know, it depends if I got room here. And once we get that done, I'll show you how to make the contour of the rim convincing. And what I mean by that is a lot of people who top pipes will leave it dead flat, and without really knowing it, it looks wrong. You can't quite put your finger on it, but you can tell it's been topped. And it's because when they come from the factories, there's a very, very, very slight radius to the edge, to the rim rather, and if it's completely optically flat, it looks wrong. So you've got to do a little more work after you've done the actual topping on the flat surface. The stem is funky, it needs some work, but we're going to leave it on so that when we work on the shank here, we won't have any chance of rounding over the end of the shank, which is bad juju, as you know. If that you can't really put back. Well, you could cut it back, but let's not even talk about that. Just leave the stem in place whenever you're working on the Stummel as much as possible. This one has a registration number as well as a pretty good barling stamp. So we want that to remain intact and in good shape. So I'm going to put a piece of protective tape over that stamped nomenclature, just so we don't scrub it any more than necessary. Now we're gonna, when we do the stem, we'll have to mess with it a little bit, but I want it to be on our terms, so to speak, when I can control what I'm doing. In the meantime, we just want the stem in place to avoid from rounding off the end of the shank itself. So that is it. Let me see if I can get the camera moved and I'll start the topping process. Sorry if it bounces around, that's part of the deal here. Yeah, also, I'd say excuse the mess, but this is what the war room looks like when I'm doing refinishing work. It paradoxically is messier in terms of the amount of stuff that you have to have available when you do refinish work than when you do true mechanical repairs. So things get pretty cluttered, and I want you guys with these videos to see real world work, not just demonstrations that are questionable as to is that how he really does it type of thing. So here we go. Now for balance purposes, we're going to take the stem out. We don't need the weight out on the end there. There's no danger of scrubbing the wrong end here. And this is just a piece of 600 grit. You can read it there. And holding the pipe or the Stummel straight up and down, just start going around in circles. Now notice that it's only taped on one side. If you tape both sides, humidity will expand the paper and you'll get wrinkles in it. If you only do the one, you can always stretch it tight with the hand that you're not holding the pipe with, and that's the better way to go. Now you could, if you're really doing a hardcore massive top, like a 1/8 of an inch or something, you could use a more coarse paper than this. But this doesn't need that, and it also prevents you from going too far. You want to take off absolutely the least amount of material necessary. And to keep the thing level, humans, our tendency is to push harder on one side than the other unconsciously. So every little while, reverse it so that the shank is pointed away from you. And it's going to squeak and make all kinds of noise, but that's part of the game here. Okay, that's the process. I'm going to shut the camera off just to keep these at reasonable length, and when I'm finished doing what you just saw, no more than that, all you'd see if I kept it on would be that what you just saw, only more of it. So I'm going to shut the camera off and turn it back on when I've gotten the ashtray dents out of it.